Yariv Levin, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich, Aryeh Deri, Benjamin Netanyahu. I'll admit that until this month, I only recognized one of these names. If you haven't been following Israeli politics, I'd like to fill you in a little bit. On November 1st of last year, Israel held its 5th election in 4 years. The result of either inconclusive elections with no candidate able to muster a majority of Knesset members to form a coalition, or unity governments that fell apart after various internal disputes. This time, Benjamin Netanyahu, who had been ousted a year and a half ago, in large part because he was indicted on corruption charges, this time he was able to form a coalition with several far-right and ultra-Orthodox parties. Here's some of the ministers in Netanyahu's new government. The Justice Minister, Yariv Levin, has proposed an overhaul of Israel's Supreme Court, the longtime protector of minority rights. Levin's proposals would weaken the court's authority of judicial review by giving the Knesset the power to overrule the Supreme Court with a simple majority vote. His plan also includes greater involvement of the government in selecting judges, a change that critics fear will politicize the court. Esther Hayut, the president of the Supreme Court, denounced his proposal, calling it a plan to crush the justice system. She continues, it is designed to deal a fatal blow to the independence of the judiciary and silence it. If it is implemented, she said, the 75th anniversary of Israel's independence will be remembered as the year in which the country's democratic identity was dealt a fatal blow. Itamar Ben-Gvir is the new national security minister. He's the leader of Otzma Yehudit, the Jewish Power Party, which is inspired by the ideology of Meir Kahane. Kahane, you might remember, was an extremist who had advocated for a theocratic state in which non-Jews cannot be citizens with full rights. The Israel government declared his party a terrorist organization back in the 1980s and prohibited Kahanist parties from participating in the government. Baruch Goldstein, who murdered 29 Palestinians in a mosque in 1994, was a member of Kahane's party. Ben-Gvir was also a member of his party. And until he entered politics, he had a poster of Baruch Goldstein hanging in his home. Ben-Gvir himself was convicted of incitement to racism in 2007. And this past December, Ben-Gvir insisted that in order to participate in the coalition, legislation had to be passed giving him authority over the Israeli police, allowing him to set policy, including how the police are permitted to act in the Palestinian territories. Bezalel Smotrich is the new finance minister. He was arrested by the Shin Bet during the disengagement from Gaza in 2005 on suspicion of terrorist activities, but never formally charged. He's a vocal advocate for annexation of the West Bank and for Torah law to be the law of the land. He's recently been given authority over the civil administration, which governs civilian affairs in the West Bank. He's also known for organizing the Beast Parade, an anti-gay demonstration that involved parading donkeys, goats, and other animals through Jerusalem, while declaring the uncleanness of LGBT pride and declaring homosexuality to be worse than bestiality. He has referred to himself as a proud homophobe. Aryeh Deri was named Interior Minister and Health Minister. He's a founder of the ultra-Orthodox Shas Party, a key partner in Netanyahu's coalition. This week, he was declared by the Supreme Court to be ineligible to serve as minister because of his prior convictions of tax fraud. Prime Minister Netanyahu has yet to remove him from his posts. No matter where you are on the political spectrum, I hope we can agree that this is quite a cast of characters. As the admittedly liberal journalist and author Yossi Klein Halevi put it, the Netanyahu government is the most politically extreme, the most morally corrupt, and the most contemptuous of good governance in Israel's history. We have known governments with extremist elements, governments rife with corruption or incompetence, but not all at once, and not to this extent. It is no wonder that many people, Israelis and diaspora Jews alike, are concerned about this government's plans to threaten democracy, and take away the rights of minorities, whether they are Arabs, members of the LGBTQ community, women, or non-Orthodox Jews. 80,000 Israelis protested in Tel Aviv last weekend, including many opposition leaders such as Tzipi Livni, Ehud Barak, Benny Gantz, and other members of the opposition parties. As one protester said, "We don't like what's happening here. I don't know if protesting will make a difference, but if we don't do something, then for sure nothing will change." More protests are planned for this weekend. As Jews living outside of Israel, we might wonder whether we should or can have any part to play in this unfolding story. Some Israeli thinkers like Daniel Hartman and Yossi Klein Halevi worry that this new government will only further alienate American Jews, particularly as it takes up policies meant to delegitimize non-Orthodox Jews. But if we take seriously the rabbinic dictum that Kol Yisrael arevim zeh bazeh, the whole Jewish people is responsible for one another, then we have a responsibility to be aware of the current political situation in Israel, as confusing or troubling as it can be, and find ways to make our voices heard. So, for example, the Union for Reform Judaism issued a statement condemning the proposed judicial changes, and the conservative movement issued an ultimately unsuccessful statement calling on Netanyahu to refrain from appointing Itamar Ben-Gvir to a ministerial position. And recently, an open letter signed by over 300 rabbis and cantors in this country was published in the Washington Post, declaring, "We, the undersigned, who care deeply about the security and well-being of the democratic state of Israel, are signing this letter of protest, pledging to not invite any members of the religious Zionist party bloc, including but not limited to Otzma Yehudit leaders, to speak at our congregations and organizations. We will speak out against their participation in other fora across our communities. We will encourage the boards of our congregations and organizations to join us in this protest as a demonstration of our commitment to our Jewish and democratic values. When those who tout racism and bigotry claim to speak in the name of Israel, but deny our rights, our heritage, and the rights of the most vulnerable among us, we must take action. We must speak out. We must show the world that we are a people whose founding principles require us to see every person as B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God." It remains to be seen whether the worst of this new Israeli government's rhetoric will be realized or will remain just that, rhetoric. But in this moment of uncertainty, it is incumbent upon us to give voice to the Judaism we know and love, a Judaism that calls for upholding the dignity and equality of all human beings, caring for the marginalized and powerless, preserving life, and pursuing peace. May the Jewish state be the homeland not only for all Jews, but also for the best of Judaism, a country that strives to embody our highest aspirations and our deepest hopes. Shabbat Shalom.